Embree.
Howdy.
I'm Sherry Fletcher, and we are interviewing Sonny or Embree Hale, and for a part of our Centennial, for the celebration of Sierra County. I'm Sherry Fletcher, and who we have here, Sonny or Embree. I know I call you Embree, and Baxter calls you Sonny. We have Ann Welburn, and also we have Jay Hopkins behind the camera. So we are here, and we're going to ask you some questions. And so we'll start out with, tell us who your parents were. And you're going to talk about Lake Valley and Hillsboro.
Okay.
All right.
My parents were, my mother was Noreen Faulkner, and my dad was Embree, E-M-B-R-E-E Hale, so I'm Embree Hale Jr. And then they got a divorce when I was 9 years old, and then I lived with Georgia Dons, Hale and my father, from 9 years old on.
So Georgia was your stepmom then?
Yes, yeah.
And was she Johnny Dines' sister?
Yes. No, daughter.
Daughter?
Yeah, Johnny Dines' daughter, yeah.
And
Frank Dines was her brother.
And so they were ranching in the Lake Valley area?
No, they had in the early days, they had a ranch right down the Percher, right below the box. And then they sold it during the drought and the Depression. Then finally they had a ranch up south between Hermosa and Winston. And that's what Frank owned when he died.
Now, did they raise cattle, or did they raise sheep or goats?
Cattle. Yeah. And Georgia's grandfather, Ferguson, he had goats.
About how many goats did the Fergusons have?
I have no idea.
But they did raise the goats then.
Yeah.
Do you have any idea of, in the history, how and when did they come to the Hillsboro, Lake Valley area?
My grandparents, Andy Faulkner and Agnes, came to Winston in 1910, and then they homesteaded a ranch up on Poverty Creek. I don't think that's a very good place to have a homestead in Poverty Creek.
There was a play on words there, wasn't there? And that was called the Faulkner Homestead, right?
Yeah. And then later on, they moved and they had a dairy farm on Palomas Creek. The Faulkners did for quite a few years, and it included what is in Cabal Lake now. And then when they made the dam, then they had to sell some of that land for that lake. And
so it was condemned then, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Did the government replace that land with land elsewhere, or were they?
I think they just bought them out, you know. But they do you know where Monroe Faulkner lived? Did you know where he lived on Palomas Creek?
Yes.
That's where they lived, right there.
Okay.
That was where the Faulkners lived, and that was in the 20s, you know. And then, okay.
And so your family came out of did you have any stories about what it was like when they were living in the Winston area, or any early stories that you found interesting that were passed on through your family?
No, not no.
And didn't the family come from Eddy County? Didn't they come over? Didn't they drift out of Texas into the eastern side of New Mexico and then go on into?
Yeah, the Faulkners came in from Texas to Carlsbad, and from Carlsbad to Magdalena, and then down to the Hot Springs, and then Palomas Hot Springs.
Okay.
And then the Donges came from Missouri, and they homesteaded the Adobe Ranch, the Donges did. So they were here a long time. And other famous ranches, which I keep thinking of right now.
Well, if they had come to Palomas Hot Springs, did they come for the baths? Was there some health issues that why they relocated here? when they came?
No, I don't think so. I think mostly they just wanted wanted their daughter to be close to a school, I think. And then, of course, they wanted to have some kind of business, with cattle, probably, and they had a dairy,
So
they couldn't have a dairy right there in town. That's the one out on Boulder Street.
but that was pretty close then. And, and where did she go to school? And the daughter.
To Hot Springs High School.
Okay, so that by then.
She graduated from Hot Springs High School.
And what year was that?
I don't know. I want to say 28, but I don't know. I just a guess,
And now, was this your aunt or was this your mother?
This is my mother.
Your mother. So, did she ever give you any memories of what it was like at the goat farm? I mean, where they had their dairy, or?
No, I've seen a lot of pictures. There's always, they seemed like they always had a lot of people there, like something going on,
At the house?
But they didn't. I don't know. Maybe they didn't live in the past too much. Maybe they just lived in the present.
And they didn't talk a lot about the past.
Yeah.
Now, your dad was wasn't he a hard rock miner?
Well, he mined a little bit, but mostly when he was a young man. Now, my grandfather Hale, he was a newspaper man, and he had a newspaper in Hillsboro in the 20s. The Hillsboro paper, I don't know what they call it and he was in the Marine Corps, and the Hales had homesteaded over by Logan, New Mexico, in 1916, and then. But my granddaddy Hale was a newspaper man. He was a Methodist preacher and a newspaper man and a school teacher. And he had a newspaper in Hillsboro. And when my daddy got out of the Marine Corps in 1930, well, he came looking for his dad. And so he found him there in Hillsboro. and that's how come the Hales are here. Then my granddaddy Hale came to here to Hot Springs and had a paper here for, I don't know, maybe a year or two, and then he drifted on to someplace else and finally ended up in Plains, Texas, and that's when he settled down finally. But that's the reason the Hales were here, and then of course my dad, he stayed. He married my mother, and then he married her. He liked school teachers. He made two different school teachers. Then what he did, my daddy, he was a cowboy, and then for the Ladder Ranch and for the nuns there, he worked for the nuns quite a bit, and for mostly where he worked for more than anybody is Arlo Grimm. They had a ranch there by Kingston. And then he started working for the state, driving a bulldozer, and then they leveled down the land where the Carotene is, I think, maybe I know they leveled down the football field, the state did, and that cut coming into the junction there from Hillsboro, that he and I don't know, Dudley Lines or Johnny Lines, and they didn't know how to run a bulldozer, but they're learning, and they made that cut coming into the road there, the 085, from Hillsboro, and then they worked on that road from Nutt into Deming. They built that road, the state did, and they worked on that, and then they started working on the Black Ranch Highway, and that was a job, I think, mostly just keep people working, and Dad worked on with a bulldozer. And there was one bulldozer in the state in the southern end of the state and one in the northern end of the state had 2 bulldozers.
Now, what year was this? Was this
In
during
the 30s, in the 30s.
CCC? Was this when they were all learning the skills from the WPA or CCC, the Conservation Corps?
Well, that wouldn't involve the CCs, I don't think. It's just a state project building that road, you know, which is, that was quite a road putting over the Black Range. That was a big project, you know. And of course, they, you know, that was the first time they could, you know, move dirt with a bulldozer. So he got into being a bulldozer operator, and then later on in the years he got interested in mining and did a little mining. But then my dad and mother, they moved to Morenci for a while, and then Phoenix. Then he went into World War II, and then my mother and I came back to Monticello, and she taught school in Monticello there. And I went to school in Monticello from the middle of the 1st grade through the 4th grade, you know, at the end of the 4th grade. I really loved going to school in Monticello.
Who were your favorite teachers?
Mrs. Kimbrell, and she was rough. she was really rough, but she was good. She was really a good teacher.
Why did you like going to school? Why did you like going to school in Monticello?
Well, I just liked it, and I don't know why I just did. I saw one thing, it was a good school, and I'll give you an example. I started out kindergarten in Hillsboro, up at Hillsboro, that old schoolhouse, and then I went to a semester in Phoenix, and then we came back to Monticello. Now this is the truth. The first day I was there, Mrs. Farmer was a teacher, and she said, everybody's going to count from 1 to 50. And I thought, what in the hell are they talking about? I had no concept of count. I didn't even realize what they meant. So, but the first little kid got up and counted to 50. And I caught on then what was going on. And then I caught on that, you know, that when he got to 20, well, that's 2. And then there's a 3, and there's 3, and you just kept repeating yourself exactly what you did. So it come my turn, you know, there were about 30 little kids in there, and you know, they're all little Spanish kids, except maybe there might have been one other Anglo there, but they all counted to 50, and I got up and counted to 50. And then under Mrs. Kimbrell, every Friday we had a spelling bee. And who was the first one down? Every Friday, I was the first one down.
That was humbling, wasn't it?
But then, when I came into Tier C to the grade school, about the last 2 months of 4th grade, the first time in my life I was ahead of everybody.
And who was your teacher here in Tier C?
Mrs. Ferguson.
And that was part of the ranching family, or was that a different Ferguson?
That's a different Ferguson. She, I think her husband had a jewelry store here. But she was quite a lady. She was quite a teacher. And Mrs. Giles was the principal.
What kind of discipline did they have for you? What kind of discipline? How did they make you behave?
All they had to do is a low whisper. Be good, Embree. Sit down and be quiet. There wasn't any discipline problem.
Well, what would they do if you didn't sit down and be quiet?
They didn't have any problem on that. I'm the one who's always causing trouble, if anybody was, you know. I was always getting the whole class in trouble, you know. And but there wasn't any problems, you know.